Pay attention to this woman carrying a tall glass of iced tea across a small apartment living room. Sweet tea, his favorite drink. Look at the man on that couch, sick, sweating, barely able to sit up. She told everyone not to call an ambulance, said she knew what she was doing. 30 years as a nurse, she claimed. Watch her hand him that glass. Look how caring she appears. He trusts her completely. He's been with her for over a decade. That man is Stephen Riley, 51 years old. That woman is Ina Kenoyer, his girlfriend of 10 years. And what Stephen doesn't know, what he will never know, is that the woman caring for him has been poisoning him for days. That glass of sweet tea, it's laced with antifreeze. In 14 hours, he'll be dead. To understand what happened to Stephen Riley, you have to understand who he was. Stephen Riley was 51 years old, a mechanic who spent his days in garages working on engines and body work. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't wealthy, he lived simply. 2 failed marriages sat behind him. Most of his family had drifted away over the years, but there was one relationship Steve had fought to rebuild. His son Ryan, who served in the National Guard in Texas. Steve was preparing a truck for him, a project he'd been working on for months. It was more than a vehicle. It was a bridge between father and son. Life had been hard for Steve. He and his girlfriend Ina struggled to keep the lights on in their Minot apartment. Rent was always late. Friends had to help them with groceries. Steve worked when he could, but steady income was a dream he'd stopped chasing. And then, in the late summer of 2023, everything changed. Steve learned he was about to inherit $30 million from a distant uncle in Ireland. But Steve wouldn't live long enough to see a single dollar. The woman standing beside him through all of this was someone he'd trusted for over a decade. But trust, as it turned out, was the most dangerous thing Steve had to offer. Ina Kenoyer was 48 years old. She'd been with Steve for more than 10 years, but if you asked her, she'd call herself his fiancée. Sometimes she'd even say wife. They'd never actually married. But Ina believed the years together entitled her to whatever Steve had. And what Steve had, or what he was about to have, was everything. Ina's life hadn't been easy. A childhood marked by abuse and instability had shaped her into someone who held on tightly to whatever security she could find. She didn't work. She depended entirely on Steve, even though Steve barely had enough to support himself. Friends noticed how controlling she was. She monitored his phone. She accessed his emails. She inserted herself into every conversation, every plan. When Steve learned about the inheritance from his uncle in Ireland, Ina made sure she was involved in every step of the process. She knew the lawyer's name. She knew the timeline. She knew exactly when the money was supposed to arrive. And she made it very clear to everyone around her that she expected to share in it. The problem was Steve had other plans, plans that didn't include her. But to understand how those two lives became so tangled, you have to go back to where it all started. Ina and Steve met at a homeless shelter in Washington State over a decade earlier. It was Easter, and the shelter was hosting a community dinner for anyone who needed a meal. Both of them were struggling. Steve was nursing wounds from 2 failed marriages and a family that had mostly turned its back on him. Ina was carrying her own trauma, trying to piece together some kind of stability. They found each other in that moment, 2 people with nowhere else to go, and they held on. They moved to North Dakota together, settling into a small apartment in Minot, where they lived for the next 10 years. They never married. Life was a constant scramble. scraping together rent, relying on friends for help. And then, about 7 years into their relationship, Steve received a phone call that sounded too good to be true. A man named Marcus Riley, a distant uncle Steve had never met, had been searching for him. Marcus lived in Ireland. He was wealthy, heavily invested in real estate, and he had no children. When Marcus died in early 2023, Steve learned he was the sole heir to an estate worth an estimated $30 million. A British lawyer named Richard was handling the transfer. The money was real. Steve's life was about to change. His friends noticed the shift in him immediately. He was hopeful, excited, making plans to pay off debts, to take care of his son, to finally live the kind of life he'd only imagined. Ina noticed too, and she made sure she was part of every detail. She communicated with the lawyer directly. She kept track of the timeline. She knew the exact day the money was supposed to arrive, September 3rd, 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Minot airport. But what Steve's friends also noticed was something else. Steve had started talking about leaving Ina once the money came through. He told his son Ryan. He told his close friend Billy. He was planning to walk away. Whether he'd give her anything, a house, a payout, or nothing at all, no one knew for sure. But one thing was clear. Steve wanted out. Ina, whether she knew it or not, was running out of time. The days leading up to September 3rd were tense. The lawyer had already missed one meeting, and the pressure was building. But nothing could have prepared anyone for what happened on September 2nd. The lawyer was supposed to arrive on August 29th. Steve had been waiting for months. Richard was flying in from London with the paperwork. All Steve had to do was sign, and the money would be his. But Richard never showed. There was an issue with his plane, he said, a delay. He'd reschedule. Steve was frustrated, but he waited. What choice did he have? Then, on September 2nd, just one day before the rescheduled meeting, Steve and Ina had a massive fight. It erupted in the middle of the day, loud enough for neighbors to hear. Ina grabbed his belongings and threw them out the front door of the apartment, scattering clothes and personal items across the pavement. Friends saw it happen. Steve was humiliated, angry, done. He confided in his son Ryan and his close friend Billy that same day. Once the inheritance came through, he was leaving. He was taking the money, giving his son the truck he'd been working on, and walking away from Ina for good. The next morning, September 3rd, Richard rescheduled his arrival for 2 o'clock that afternoon. This was it, the real meeting. But hours before that 2 o'clock appointment, something strange happened. At 4 o'clock in the morning, while Steve should have been sleeping, preparing for the most important day of his life, police were called to his apartment. A neighbor named Chad had been banging on doors, drunk. He'd gotten into a scuffle with Steve. When officers knocked, Ina answered and listened to what she can't stop talking about.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi. Sorry.
You thought it was Chad?
Yeah.
Who was Chad out here?
Trying to kick in everybody's door.
Who was he out here fighting?
Busted in my light, and look at the garbage cans.
Who was here? Who was he fighting with out here?
My fiance. He went for a walk to cool down.
Okay. Who's
he
that?
punched him a couple times.
Who's that? Who's your fiance?
Steve.
Steve.
Riley.
Steve Riley? Okay. What's your name?
I'm Ina.
Ina.
Kenoyer.
Okay.
He gets his inheritance this afternoon. That's why we're moving. We're going to pay all our bills off that we need to pay off.
Do you guys want to press any charges against Chad?
I'll ask him when he gets here.
Are you asking your fiance?
Yeah.
Okay.
He went to cool down because
okay.
Chad really
Who started the fight? Chad
right
or who started the fight? Chad or your fiance?
Chad.
Chad did.
Like I said, he has a really important appointment with his lawyer today at 2 o'clock.
Is his head okay, you think, or is he wandering around bleeding somewhere?
I don't. He just wandered off. Said, I gotta cool down, I'll be back.
She said it again and again. The inheritance, the lawyer, the 2 o'clock meeting. Why was she so focused on the money at 4 in the morning?
Yeah, he's been trying to get that truck ready for his son in Texas. He's in the Army National Guard in the garage. I'm gonna tow it down to him. No, we're gonna tow it down to him. And then take a long vacation. He'll probably put it in his report when he goes in to pay all his fines off. So, I've only been putting $5 on there a month. So, I mean, that's all I could afford.
Yeah. He's
I
coming
couldn't
in
even
tomorrow
buy
to do
food,
that,
huh?
or what? He's coming in tomorrow to do that, or what?
Today.
Okay.
His lawyer gets here today at 2
Okay.
to sign the paperwork for his money.
Okay.
And then he's going to go pay that.
The officers left. Steve returned from his walk, and a few hours later, as the morning sunlight broke over Minot, Steve went into the garage to work on the truck. Steve spent the morning in the garage working on the truck for Ryan, spray painting the body with the doors and windows closed. The garage was hot, stuffy, poorly ventilated. Ina would later claim that Steve drank an entire case of 24 beers that morning while he worked. Friends who were there, Billy Burkhead and Wes Togerson, said they never saw him drink a single one. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, when Steve and his friends arrived at the airport, everything had already started to unravel. Steve was in bad shape when they pulled into the parking lot. His friends Billy and Wes were with him, along with Ina. They were there to meet Richard, the British lawyer who'd rescheduled from days earlier. This was supposed to be the moment, the signing, the transfer, the beginning of Steve's new life. But Steve could barely walk. He was sweating, stumbling, disoriented. His friends had to help him out of the car. "I feel like I'm drunk," Steve kept saying. "I haven't drank anything all day." They waited. The lawyer never showed. Again. Wes helped Steve back to the car and drove him home to the apartment. By the time they got him inside, Steve collapsed onto the couch. He was drifting in and out of consciousness, his body shutting down. And Ina, she sprang into action. Remember that glass of tea you saw at the beginning? This is when she served it. Cold towels, ice, and glasses of sweet tea, Steve's favorite drink. "I know what I'm doing," she told Wes. "I worked as a nurse for over 30 years. She insisted they not call an ambulance. It was heat stroke, she said. He'd been working in that hot garage all morning, spray painting with the windows closed. He just needed rest, fluids, time. Wes left, uneasy but trusting Ina knew what she was doing. Throughout the evening, Steve's condition worsened. He couldn't sit up. He was incoherent. Friends returned to the airport later that night, thinking maybe Richard's flight had been delayed again. He never came. Back at the apartment, Ina still refused to call for help, and she kept serving the tea. The next morning, Wes couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He drove back to the apartment to check on Steve. It was around 10 o'clock in the morning when Wes knocked on the door of apartment 912. Ina's voice came from inside. "Who is it?" "It's Wes. Is Steve there?" There was a pause. Then Ina said, "No, he's at the walk-in clinic." Wes frowned. "Which clinic?" "Just getting treatment. He's fine." Wes didn't believe her. He drove to every walk-in, clinic in Minot. Steve wasn't at any of them. He went to the hospital. Steve wasn't there either. Wes drove back to the apartment and pounded on the door. "Ina, I've been to the clinics. I've been to the hospital. He's not there. Where is he?" Ina locked the door. As soon as Wes left, convinced something was terribly wrong but unsure what to do, Ina finally made the call. 911. Paramedics found Steve on the floor, unresponsive.
Hello? Yeah. It's Officer Sullivan, Minot PD.
Yeah, hang on. Trying to make a chat. Cool. Go!
Not responding. He's on the crack of the bed right there. She tried to sit him up and he fell off the bed.
She said nothing about the sweet tea. She said nothing about the glasses she'd been serving him throughout the night. She said nothing about the bright green liquid sitting in a Coors Light bottle in the garage, or the mug with the same substance sitting in plain view on the counter. Paramedics transported Steve to the hospital under the assumption that he was severely intoxicated. Hours later, on September 5th, Steve Riley died. The autopsy revealed the truth: ethylene glycol, antifreeze, a lethal dose. He hadn't been drunk, he'd been poisoned.
Excuse me. Steve.
Steven Edward Riley.
Edward Riley.
Yeah. As soon as I find my wallet, I'll get this ID.
The moment Steve died, the people who loved him began to ask questions. And the answers they found pointed to only one person. Billy Burkhead wasn't buying it. He'd been with Steve the entire day before he collapsed. They'd worked on the truck together. They'd gone to the airport together. Steve was in good spirits. He was excited, and Billy never saw him drink a single beer. So when Billy heard that Steve had died and that the story was alcohol poisoning, he called the Minot Police Department and told them to come back to the apartment. He had something to say. "I think she poisoned him," Billy told them. "I'm almost sure she poisoned him." Billy wasn't the only one. His partner Lynn came forward and told police something chilling. Months earlier, Ina had made an offhand comment, almost like a joke, but not quite. She'd said if she ever wanted to kill Steve, she'd use antifreeze. Lynn hadn't thought much of it at the time. Now, with Steve dead and antifreeze in his system, it didn't sound like a joke anymore. Wes came forward too. He told detectives how Ina had lied about Steve being at a walk-in clinic, how she'd refused to let him into the apartment, how she'd locked the door when he came back demanding answers. When the hospital confirmed that Steve had been poisoned with ethylene glycol, detectives launched a homicide investigation. They obtained a search warrant for apartment 912A. What they found inside was worse than anyone expected. The apartment was filthy. Trash covered every surface. Dog feces, old food packaging, clutter piled so high you could barely walk through the rooms. And in the middle of all that mess, sitting in plain view, were the bottles. A bright green liquid in the bottom of a window cleaner bottle. A Coors Light bottle in the garage with the same substance inside. A mug with traces of the liquid still visible. All of it antifreeze. Containers of it were stacked in the garage, easily accessible. Antifreeze is odorless. When you mix it with another liquid, the bright green color fades. The ethylene glycol makes it taste sweet, perfect for hiding in sweet tea. Detectives now had their murder weapon. They just needed a confession. Ina wasn't under arrest when she sat down across from detectives in the interrogation room, but she was about to learn just how much they already knew.
But the lawyer would not contact me back, personally. That I'm his girlfriend, wife type thing.
Yep.
he would like to contact you. Is there a way to contact you? You know, through legal means, like inheritance lawyer or something here.
Okay.
But he never, all of a sudden the email disappeared. Like it didn't exist.
The address? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How long ago was that? Do you remember?
Pretty much when I told him he was in the hospital.
Okay.
The emails wouldn't go through anymore. It was saying it never existed.
Okay. So it was foreign, the uncle's foreign and the money is in a foreign account.
Yeah.
And so how was he going to get the money? What was the plan?
Well, the lawyer guy wanted to give him to get a bank account.
The lawyer
originally.
Okay, so he wanted to
so he could just deposit it into his bank account.
Okay.
It couldn't be nobody else's bank account.
Sure.
According to the lawyer.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I can give you a few bucks, you know. I paid to get his birth certificate so he can go get his ID and his Social Security.
Okay. So he was going to be sending this lawyer all of his personal information.
Yeah.
She explained the inheritance in detail, the uncle in Ireland, the lawyer named Richard, the emails, the meetings that kept getting delayed. She seemed eager to talk about it. But when detectives started pressing on the details of Steve's illness, her story began to fall apart.
He finally realized it was a joke on him, or you know, it wasn't real.
Do you think the money's real?
I hope for Steve's sake it was, but it was too fishy for me.
Did Steve ever say when he got the money that he was going to leave? He was going to go anywhere? He was going to leave you? He was going to give you some money and be done? Anything like that?
He was off and on, yeah, when we got into fights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was he going to make sure you got money?
No.
Okay.
Because I kept telling him I don't want it.
You had been together for a long time.
That's what's, yeah.
Were you expecting that if something, I mean, you would get money?
No.
Okay.
Like I said, I would have given it to his ex-wives because they deserve it way more than I did.
Okay.
Because they were actually married. He was drinking beer all day. He was working in the garage. He was spray painting his truck, you know, with the doors and the windows closed, and barely drinking any water.
So he consumed almost a case of beer in...
Oh, he can drink more than that. I've seen him drink a couple cases.
But on that day...
Yeah, it was a case of beer.
From probably 6 or 7 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, so 5 to 6 hours? Does that sound right?
Probably.
Okay. Did you drink anything else?
Just a glass of water that I brought him, and his tea. I made iced tea because he begged for iced tea. That's pretty much it. Glass of tea and a glass of ice water.
The lead detective left the room briefly, and in that moment, Ina said something strange, almost to herself. When the detective returned, she didn't waste time.
And he kind of finally confessed he accidentally drank some kind of fluid.
And that was about 6 months ago, you said?
It could have been longer.
Okay.
Could have been a year ago. Everything runs, with my brain injury, everything kind of smushes and, you know.
Yeah, she was just saying that about 6 months, maybe a year ago, there was a prior ambulance call up there where it was maybe heat stroke, but Steve said that he thinks he might have accidentally drank some kind of fluid from the garage while working on a car.
So I just have a lot of concerns here, okay? And I'm just going to be honest with you. You told the paramedics when they were there that morning or afternoon that he had been drinking till 5 in the morning, that he had been consuming alcohol. That's on body cam. Okay, you said he was drinking all day the day before and that he drank his last drink at 5 a.m. Okay, and now you're telling me
tea.
That's not what you say on this video. Okay.
I want to see this video.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to show you the body cam. I'm just telling you that that's what's on there. There's reports that Wes came to the house that morning, and you said that Steve was at the walk-in clinic. He wasn't at the walk-in clinic.
Steve didn't want to see Wes anymore.
Okay, but Steve wasn't at the walk-in clinic.
He was at the hospital.
He wasn't at the hospital. He wasn't anywhere yet. Because it's been verified. He wasn't when Wes was there. Okay. He
just left with the ambulance when Wes showed up there.
That's not what's been reported to us. Wes was there prior to.
Yeah, the timestamps prove that.
I want a lawyer.
Okay, that's fine.
Am I being arrested?
Nope, you're not being arrested. We're just talking. So, but if you want a lawyer, we can stop talking right now. That's fine.
But I'm telling you the God honest truth.
Okay.
I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. I wish I was there. I wish I was with him every second of the day that day. I wish I watched every single, but I'm not his goddamn mom.
You asked for a lawyer, Ina, so we're just going to end this now. Okay, I'm not going to talk anymore. All right?
You guys are so unbelievable. Fucking serious.
This way, here's. Here, I'll walk.
Oh my God.
Ina Kenoyer was arrested on October 30th, 2023, and charged with the murder of Stephen Riley. For months, she maintained her innocence, offering increasingly wild theories. Steve had poisoned himself out of shame when the lawyer turned out to be fake. Billy and Lynn had poisoned him because they were nasty people. She herself had been poisoned months earlier and suffered a miscarriage, though she had no proof she'd ever been pregnant. But in May of 2024, facing overwhelming evidence, Ina changed her plea to guilty. At her sentencing hearing in October 2024, Steve's son Ryan stood before the court and delivered a victim impact statement. He spoke about the father he'd reconnected with after years of estrangement, the man who was building him a truck, the man who was finally going to have the life he deserved, and the woman who took all of that away. Steve's sister Stephanie also spoke. Her words were sharp, unforgiving.
My opinion of you is what you did to my brother is that you ironically are an exact reflection of the home that you kept and lived in. Vile, filthy, disgusting, embarrassing, gross, full of feces and pure trash.
The judge sentenced Ina Kenoyer to 25 years in prison with an additional 25 years suspended. But even with justice served, one question remained unanswered, and it haunts everyone who knew Steve. The inheritance never existed. Investigators confirmed there was no British lawyer, no Irish estate, no $30 million. The lawyer named Richard, if he ever existed at all, vanished without a trace the moment Steve died. His email address stopped working, the phone number disconnected. It's unclear whether Ina fabricated the entire scheme herself, convincing Steve over months or even years that he was about to be wealthy, or whether both of them were victims of an elaborate scam. Either way, Stephen Riley died believing he was hours away from changing his life. He died believing he was about to give his son a better future, pay off his debts, and finally walk away from the woman who'd made him miserable. Instead, the woman he trusted most, the woman he'd spent over a decade with, the woman he'd shared his dreams with, took everything from him. Not with a gun, not with violence, but with glasses of sweet tea served with a smile laced with poison. Steve never saw it coming, and By the time anyone realized what was happening, it was already too late.